What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to discuss even more new iOS 18.2 features and changes. We're going to talk about why Mac storage might be getting a lot cheaper, an update on the iPhone 17 Pro design, details on Apple's upcoming 5G modem, a crazy AirTag story, and more. And as always, if you want to continue staying up to date on the latest in the world of Apple, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and also check out the Apple Den newsletter. Okay, so let's start by talking about iOS 18.2 because this week on Thursday of all days, we finally got the RC or the release candidate build of iOS 18.2, which means that the public release, the public final release is imminent. We should be seeing that next week, most likely early next week. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But there are some additional changes that I do want to discuss. All right, so in the Photos application, which by the way, it's been getting so much hate recently on social media for some reason, just completely out of nowhere. But I'm personally a big fan of the new Photos application, and it gets even better with iOS 18.2. So you might notice that my albums look a little bit different here on the main page of Photos. And that's because in 18.2, if we go into albums, this UI has been changed. So you'll notice that we have a back arrow up in the top left now. The personal, shared, and activity buttons are all a little bit smaller, and the view is different. We have a grid view here, and that's because if you tap on the three dots, you can change between grid and list view, which list view was the default. That is what that looks like. I like the grid view a lot better, and you can also sort by the name and by custom order as well. And then also if we go down to the utilities folder, you'll notice that we have favorites in utilities now. So that was not there in 18.1 or 18.1.1, but now that is there. Also for recently saved and recently viewed, you can now pretty much clear your history. So I go to recently viewed, for example, and we tap the three dots up in the top right-hand corner. We have remove all from recently viewed. And when you tap on that, it says all items will be removed from recently viewed, but will remain in your photo library. So it's basically like clearing your history. You can do that now within these folders. And one of the big bug fixes that's mentioned by Apple is that it says recently captured photos do not appear immediately in the all photos grid. So this is the all photos grid. Sometimes when you would take a photo or import a photo from another source, it would not show up in your all photos grid, but now that has been fixed. And then in our settings, if we go to the Safari section and then go to privacy and security, we have our not secure connection warning. And in the release notes, we see Apple mention something related to that. So it shows HTTPS priority upgrades URLs to HTTPS whenever possible. So that was shown in the beta release notes, but we now see it here in the official release notes. We have more details on that feature. And also in the stocks application, you can now see the pre-market prices. Now, something else that's coming with 18.2 is expanded language support for Apple Intelligence. So if we go into our Apple Intelligence in Siri section and then go into our language, you can see there are several additional localized English languages, such as New Zealand, Ireland, India, Australia. You can see all of those right there. United Kingdom, all of those are available in localized English, which is great. And of course, Apple Intelligence will be coming to the EU early next year. And also with 18.2, the hearing test feature, if you have the AirPods Pro 2, is now available in 9 additional countries, and the hearing aid feature is now available in the United Arab Emirates. Now, something else that I wanted to discuss is the touch responsiveness bug. So I had some people mention in my previous video that they're having touch responsive issues, like their touch is not registering every time they touch in that spot on their iPhone. Now, me personally, I have not had that since 18.0 when the iPhone 16 first released, and that was actually patched by Apple with 18.0.1. It actually said it in the release notes. So ever since then, I've not had any issues with touch responsiveness, but it does seem like quite a few of you guys are having that issue. So if you're having that, let me know in a comment down below, and also let me know if 18.2 RC fixed that issue for you. And if you haven't updated yet, let me know when 18.2 officially launches in the comments, because I've not had that. Some people thought that I did have that issue, but when I watched that part back in, my video from the RC, it looked like I just missed the section that I was trying to touch. And that's why it looked like a touch responsiveness issue. But in my day-to-day, I'm not experiencing that myself. Now, also also this week, we saw the Tesla app officially launch the Apple Watch application. So if you have a Tesla and you have the Tesla application installed on your iPhone, you can now install that on your Apple Watch and use it to, start and move the car without your phone. You can treat it as a key, and you also have different quick actions that you can use as well, which is nice. However, all of that will not work until your Tesla is updated to the upcoming holiday update. But for now, you can at least have it and see how it looks and how it will work on your Apple Watch, which is awesome. I've been waiting for a native Apple Watch application for a long time. If you have an Apple Card and you have the Apple Card savings account, your rate just dropped from 4.10% to 3.9% APY. Now, this is because the Fed did just recently cut rates again. So we're expecting the rates for banks, high yield savings accounts specifically, to drop across the board. This is not just an Apple thing. This is how banks usually operate. When the Fed cuts rates, usually the rates for your high yield savings accounts go down as well. So keep that in mind. You did see a decrease there in your Apple Card savings accounts. Now here's something interesting. Coinbase just this week launched Apple Pay support to buy crypto. So if you're wanting to buy Bitcoin or Ethereum, you can now use Apple Pay to purchase that crypto on the official Coinbase application. And then here's something I thought was really cool. So Apple just recently shared a video on their Instagram, and it showed a new perspective of the action mode feature that I never thought about before. So action mode, of course, is the feature that kind of prevents shakiness. If you're running and you're holding your phone, if it's in action mode, it's going to look very stabilized. So I always thought of it as like an action mode feature, but Apple really opened my eyes with what they posted on Instagram, because they showed a powerful video of how action mode helps people with hand tremors that have Parkinson's disease. So basically the video shows a personal example of a guy named Rodrigo and how he can now record his iPhone videos without any shakiness, despite his hands shaking the entire time, he's holding his phone. So it's absolutely amazing, and it's just a perspective thing. I never thought about that before, but it's really cool that it's helping people like that. But anyways, back to iOS 18.2, I did want to touch on the performance and the battery life here. Now we did only have one full day. I actually had only one full day to experience 18.2 RC, but I will tell you that it does seem to be better than beta 4. And that is not placebo. I actually feel like it is better, because not only because of the Geekbench score being the highest we've ever scored on any version, but also just day to day, it just feels a little bit smoother. And I hate saying that, but it actually does. So we did run a fresh score here at about noon earlier today, and we scored a 3582 on the single core, 8955 on the multi-core. We've never had 8900, I don't believe, at all on this device. No, we've never had 8900, let alone 8955. So tremendous scores here from iOS 18.2 on Geekbench. Now, when it comes to the battery life feels about the same as beta 4 to me, at least so far. It did seem better in my initial RC video, but after, spending the day with it, it feels about the same as beta 4 for me. But like I've said before, that is not a bad thing. I actually had good battery life with beta 4, and I would expect the battery life to get better, if anything, here on the RC build, which again will most likely be the same as the final official release. And speaking of that final official release, let's talk about when we can expect that. So I do think that we're going to see iOS 18.2, the final official release, next week. And we could be seeing that as early as Monday, December 9th. We've actually seen carriers in the UK basically telling their customers to prepare for updates on the 9th. So, that's not always indicative of an actual release, because they may not know for sure, but we could be seeing that as early as the 9th, and that's what I'm personally preparing for. However, we could see it really any day next week. I would say any day except for Friday the 13th. And then I would also expect to see iOS 18.3 beta 1 get pushed out next week as well. I think that the following week would be the latest that we would see it, but typically we see that, in the same week as 18.2's final release. Okay, so now let's move on to the latest Apple news. And let's start with how your Mac's internal storage might be getting a lot cheaper but it's not because of Apple. And that's because a French company named Polysoft spent the past 2 years reverse engineering Apple's proprietary storage modules for the Mac Studio. And they were able to successfully manufacture their own custom SSDs, and they sent them over to some users to test out, and then they launched a now sold out Kickstarter campaign. And it's easy to see why they sold out, because these SSDs come in 2 terabyte, 4 terabyte, and 8 terabyte options, and they cost roughly half the price of Apple's storage if you were to buy it from Apple. And also, if you look at this chart here, the disk speeds are also going to be improved, even when you compare that to external NVMe SSDs. So this is not only getting you, a ton of storage for half the price, but also faster speeds overall. And it's awesome because this company customized and designed these boards differently than Apple's own proprietary ones so that they could add over voltage protection to protect the NAND flash memory from data loss. And the install is awesome. Luke Miani over here on YouTube did make a video showing this install on the Mac Studio, and it's simple. Like, there was no soldering necessary. It was very simple. Like, even I could do it. I'm terrible at stuff like that. That's why I watch him. But, even I could install that on my Mac Studio. So that was pretty awesome. And this has me really excited for what the potential future of this storage could look like barring Apple shutting them down, which hopefully they don't. This could be awesome for future Macs, like the Mac Mini especially. It'd be awesome if we could do this for the Mac Mini as well, and maybe even the MacBooks or something else in the future. Who knows? Right now, it's just for the Mac Studio, and they do plan on launching these SSDs in January for anybody to purchase. Now, we also have details on Apple's upcoming 5G modem, which they've been working on for the past 5 years. So we have a new report here from Mark Gurman that says that Apple's 5G modem is finally set to debut in the iPhone SE 4 and the entry-level iPad in the spring, along with the iPhone 17 Air in the fall. So Gurman says that unlike the Qualcomm modems we use in today's iPhones, this Apple chip is not going to support millimeter wave technology, and instead it's going to use sub-6 standard. And this means that Apple's modem will cap out at download speeds of about 4 gigabits a second compared to 10 gigabits a second on the current Qualcomm modems. However, real-world tests for both types of modems are typically far less, meaning that customers might not notice a difference in day-to-day use. And that's exactly why Apple is putting this in the lower-end products at first, so they can kind of use these lower-end products as the guinea pig for this 5G modem. Now, the 5G modem from Apple will have its advantages. So Gurman does say this. He says it'll be tightly integrated with Apple-designed main processors to use less power. It can scan for cellular networks more efficiently and better support on-device features for connecting to satellite networks. And further out, Apple is discussing merging its modem and main processor into a single component. So this is pretty interesting, and I'm really curious to see how this actually affects day-to-day use with cellular connectivity. So that's definitely going to be a video I test here on the channel, so stay tuned for that. And it looks like we're not going to see the 5G modem from Apple go into the actual big iPhone, like the iPhone 17, 17 Pro. That's probably not going to happen this year, but potentially with the iPhone 18, we could see that when there's a kind of new generation of the 5G modem. So remember last week when we talked about a report of the iPhone 17 Pro potentially going back to having an aluminum chassis? Well, it appears that that might not be happening. So this report comes from Instant Digital, who is not quite as accurate as the person who is calling for the aluminum chassis, but they're saying that Apple is going to stick to titanium with the Pro model iPhones this coming year. But the reality is nobody knows for sure. We're still several months away from seeing the iPhone 17 series, so stay tuned for more news on that. And then finally, let's talk about another crazy AirTag story. So this time, a CBS investigation in North Texas used AirTags to uncover whether Starbucks is actually following through on its recycling promises. So Starbucks is one of the largest users of plastic cups, and they advertise how committed they are to recycling. However, this investigation revealed that they talk a big game, but they don't necessarily follow through on it. And that's because the CBS team hid AirTags inside Starbucks plastic cups and dropped them in a recycling bin at 7 different stores across different cities in Texas. And the goal was to track where the cups actually ended up. So out of those 7 cups that had AirTags inside, only 3 of them actually provided usable data, and 1 ended up in a recycling center, while the other 2 were just sent to landfills, just like it was trash. And when Starbucks was confronted with the findings, they said that once waste leaves their stores, factors outside of their control affect its final destination. So basically, recycling in America is a complete joke, and I think everybody has known that for quite some time now, but it's pretty cool to see that the AirTags are being used to kind of bring this to light. We've seen this before. We've seen it before where AirTags are used to expose things not actually getting recycled, but it's cool to see it still being used for that purpose. But that's it for this week. Next week will be very exciting with iOS 18.2, along with all of the other big software updates that are coming next week. So stay tuned for that. You don't want to miss it. That's why you need to make sure you are subscribed if you are not already. But anyways, guys, if you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next week.